My name is Sophie Smith, and this is the story of the night. Everything I thought I knew about love collapsed in front of 20 witnesses and how it quietly saved my life. I used to believe my relationship with Dylan Ward made sense. He was magnetic loud in the way people mistake for charisma and energetic enough to fill every room he entered. Somewhere along the line, though, Dylan stopped seeing me as a person and started treating me like his emotional furniture, reliable, comfortable, and always exactly where he left me. I didn't realize it at first. It was a slow drip of disrespect, a joke at my expense in front of his friends. Flirting with waiters because it's harmless fun, babe. Canceling our dates the moment something shinier came along. And whenever I questioned anything, he would weaponize the same phrase every single time. "You're so insecure, Sophie. It's exhausting." That word insecure became the leash he yanked whenever he wanted me quiet. If I didn't like him dancing on a table, insecure. If I didn't like him texting an ex-girlfriend, insecure. If I didn't like him disappearing for a weekend with his buddies, insecure. I stayed because I loved him, and I convinced myself that his chaos was just passion, that his recklessness was youth, and that his belittling jokes were just how he dealt with discomfort. But nothing prepared me for the night at Tyler's party. It was one of those humid, overcrowded house parties where the bass vibrates through the floorboards and conversations stack on top of each other like broken glass. Dylan thrived in that environment. He was in rare form, practically glowing with attention, wearing the shirt he knew made women stare a second too long. I stood near the kitchen island, nursing a drink, watching him hold court in the living room. He was perched on the armrest of a couch, laughing wildly at something a woman named Brianna said, one of those flirty types who remembered Dylan from some old friend group and clearly didn't care that he was there with me. She leaned in close, too close. Dylan didn't lean away. I tried to be calm. I approached, gently placing a hand on the small of his back. "Hey," I said quietly. "I'm going to grab some water. Do you want anything? Maybe slow down a little." He stiffened instantly. He pulled away from my touch as if I were scolding him in public. "Oh my God, stop. I'm trying to have fun." His voice was loud, loud enough for the group of onlookers to hear. "Don't be such a mom, Sophie." The group laughed. Brianna laughed the loudest. Heat rushed up my neck, but I swallowed every reaction. "I'm just checking in," I said softly. "Well, check less," he snapped, turning back to Brianna with an exaggerated eye roll. "You're killing the vibe." I should have left then. I didn't. An hour later, the familiar emotional volcano began bubbling inside the room. Someone suggested Truth or Dare, the game that absolutely should have died after high school, kept alive only by alcohol and bad decisions. Dylan was on the floor cross-legged, riding a wave of attention. I sat off to the side, already tense from earlier. When the dares shifted from silly to suggestive, the room became electric. Then it was Brianna's turn. She smirked at Dylan. "Truth or dare?" "Dare," he said instantly. "Of course." Her grin sharpened. "I dare you to kiss the person in this room you're most attracted to besides your girlfriend." The room erupted with gasps and shrieks. A normal partner would have laughed it off, declined, diffused the tension. Dylan did none of those things. He looked at me, held my gaze for a moment, a challenge, a question, a defiance. Then he turned back to Brianna. "Well," he said with a laugh, "a dare's a dare." Before I could even process it, Dylan crawled forward on his hands and knees toward her. The air left my lungs. I thought maybe he'd give her a dumb little peck and call it a joke. It wasn't a peck. He grabbed Brianna by the back of the neck and crashed his mouth against hers. The two of them made out full tongue, hungry, reckless, while the room screamed and cheered. 10 seconds, 10 long, humiliating seconds. I sat frozen, watching the man I had once imagined a future with devour another woman for entertainment. When he finally pulled back, Dylan looked victorious. Brianna looked exhilarated. I felt nothing. Nothing but a cold, hollow disgust. Dylan saw my face. He waved me off like an inconvenience. "Oh my God, relax, Sophie. It was just a stupid dare. Don't be such a buzzkill." Brianna giggled beside him. "It's just a game." Something inside me broke quietly, cleanly, like a frayed rope, finally snapping. Not a scream, not a burst of rage, just detachment. I realized that any reaction would become ammunition for him, fuel for his narrative that I was crazy or controlling. So instead, I stood up slowly, my movements calm and deliberate. The room fell into a charged hush. Dylan watched me with narrowed eyes, expecting drama. I looked at him not with love, not with anger, but with absolute emptiness. Then I turned and walked out. "Sophie," Dylan barked. "Where are you going?" "Don't be dramatic." I didn't stop. I reached my car. My phone buzzed. Dylan, 11:42 p.m. "Are you seriously leaving?" "You're embarrassing me." I didn't reply. I drove home, the apartment I paid for, organized, maintained. The apartment he only contributed to when he remembered. The apartment filled with his noise and chaos. I packed everything I owned carefully and silently. Clothes, laptop, documents, the watch my grandfather gave me, my work hard drive. I packed like someone escaping a battlefield. By 12:45 a.m., the car was full. I placed my key on the counter next to a framed photo of us from Hawaii, a trip I planned and paid for, where he spent more time posting stories than being present. The photo made me realize something: I had never been dating a partner. I had been hosting an audience member. One last buzz, Dylan. 12:50 a.m. Fine. Brianna wants to drive me home since my girlfriend is acting like a child. Don't wait up. Manipulation, a baited hook, a performance. I blocked him, everywhere. Then I drove to a cheap motel at the edge of town. For the first time in 3 years, I sat on a stiff bed, breathed deeply, and felt free. Like I had finally walked out of a burning building and into clean air. But people like Dylan don't understand when the game is over. To them, silence is just a pause. He had no idea I had unplugged the console completely. The silence lasted exactly 3 days. 3 days without Dylan's voice filling my phone with excuses, accusations, or half-hearted apologies. 3 days without the constant emotional juggling act of trying to manage his moods, soothe his insecurities, or talk him down from whatever storm he'd created that week. 3 days of breathing on my own. But silence to people like Dylan is not acceptance, it's a threat. And threats make them panic. On the third afternoon, when I stepped out of my office building, I saw someone leaning against my car. Sarah, one of our mutual friends. The same Sarah who'd always insisted Dylan was just passionate. The same one who told me to stop overthinking every time he crossed a line. She had her arms crossed, face tight. "We need to talk," she said. I sighed. "Sarah, I have nothing to say." She pushed off the car and followed me as I unlocked the door. "You can't just disappear on him, Sophie. He's a mess. He hasn't eaten. He's terrified." I paused and looked at her over the roof of the car, terrified of what I asked. The consequences of his own choices. It was one kiss she practically shouted loud enough to make a couple of coworkers glance over. "A stupid, drunken dare, and you left him with the rent. You took all your stuff. You withdrew all the money." I took my half of our shared savings, I corrected, and I paid the rent for the remaining 2 months of the lease in full. Most people would have left him with the bill. Her mouth opened and closed like she was searching for a counterpoint. "If he can't get his life together in 60 days, I added calmly, "that is not my problem." Sarah shook her head, exasperated. "But he loves you." I let out a soft breath, not a laugh, not anger, just the tired exhale of someone who saw the truth clearly for the first time. "No," I said quietly. "He loves that I paid the bills. He loves that I fixed things. He loves that I absorbed his chaos and made it easier for him to shine. But respect actual love. He stopped giving me that a long time ago." Sarah didn't have a response. She turned and walked away in frustration, muttering something about how I'd regret this, but all I felt was relief. That evening, Tyler, the guy who hosted the party, texted me, "Can we talk?" I hesitated, but he was one of the few decent people in that circle, so we met for a beer at a quiet bar. When I sat down, he looked uncomfortable. "Sophie, I just wanted to say you did the right thing. What Dylan did was messed up." "Then why do I feel like everyone's blaming me?" I asked, rubbing my temples. "Because Dylan is really good at controlling the story," Tyler said, shrugging. "But I figured you should know what happened after you left." I stiffened. "What do you mean?" He leaned forward. "He didn't go home with Brianna that night." I blinked. "What?" "Yeah. After you walked out, Dylan expected her to follow him. He thought the kiss meant something. He practically hovered around her like a puppy. But Brianna..." Tyler grimaced. She laughed at him. Straight up told him, "I don't do drama, and you look like a lot of drama." Then she left with some marketing guy. A cold, quiet satisfaction slid through me. Not joy, not gloating, just the validation of truth finally aligning. So I said slowly, "He destroyed our relationship for nothing." "Yep," Tyler said. "And everyone saw it. He's humiliated. That's why he's spiraling so hard. It's not just that he lost you, it's that he lost you for nothing." Something inside me settled. A puzzle piece clicked into place. Dylan hadn't traded our relationship for passion or desire or even temptation. He threw it away for ego, for applause, for attention that evaporated in 5 minutes. The next few days were strangely peaceful. No texts from Dylan because I had blocked him everywhere. No posts from him because I wasn't looking. No drama because I was finally out of the storm. But peace is a fragile thing. On Saturday morning, exactly 1 week after the party, the knocking began. I was staying in a small Airbnb studio. No one had my address except my parents, which meant Dylan had gone to them probably crying and desperate until my mother's soft heart caved. I approached the door quietly and looked through the peephole. My breath caught. It was Dylan, but not the Dylan from the party, all confident arrogance and tequila-fired bravado. This Dylan looked broken. His hair was a mess. His eyes were red and swollen. He wore one of my oversized hoodies, a manipulative touch meant to spark nostalgia, meant to weaken my resolve. He knocked again, softer this time. "Sophie, I know you're in there. Please." I inhaled deeply. I could have ignored him, could have called the police, could have put on headphones. But I knew better. Unless I ended this directly, Dylan would haunt my life indefinitely, popping up, begging, manipulating, apologizing, promising, breaking me again and again until I stopped resisting. He needed to hear it from me. I unlocked the deadbolt and opened the door. Dylan gasped when he saw me. I looked rested, calm, alive. "Sophie!" He breathed, stepping forward as if reaching for my arm. I shifted back, denying him even the smallest contact. "What do you want, Dylan?" He flinched at the cold, steady tone of my voice. Tears rose instantly. I just wanted to see you," he stammered. "You blocked me everywhere. You disappeared. You didn't fight for us." There was nothing to fight for. His face crumpled. "I made a mistake. I was drunk." The kiss meant nothing. "Brianna means nothing." "I know," I said calmly, which is why it's even worse. He blinked confused. "You didn't throw everything away for someone you loved," I continued. "You threw it away for attention, for a room full of people cheering while you humiliated me. And when that attention evaporated suddenly, you remembered you had a girlfriend." His jaw trembled. "Sophie, please, I'll do anything. I miss us. I miss you. Tell me what to do to fix this. I swear I'll do anything." He dropped to his knees, not gently dramatically, loud, desperate, performative. He grabbed my hand and pressed his forehead to my knuckles. "Punish me. Test me. Just dare me. Dare me to prove I love you." And in that moment, staring down at the man who had once drained every ounce of my self-worth, I felt something unexpected. Not hatred, not anger, just clarity. Crystal clear clarity. I pulled my hand from his grip. "You want to dare?" His eyes lit up with frantic hope. "Yes, anything." I looked him dead in the eyes. "I dare you," I said softly, to leave me alone. Dylan froze. The hope vanished from his face, instantly replaced by shock, then terror. "Wait, Sophie, please." "Forever," I added. Then I stepped back and closed the door. The deadbolt clicked. He wailed, screamed, beat on the door. I walked to the kitchen, put on my noise-canceling headphones, made a cup of coffee, and watched the steam rise. 20 minutes later, the knocking stopped. And for the first time in years, the silence felt like freedom. For 3 days after I closed the door on him, the world was quiet again. Not peaceful, not yet, but quiet in the way a forest feels after a wildfire, charred, still waiting to regrow. Dylan didn't return. He didn't leave notes or flowers or threats. He simply vanished back into the chaos I had escaped from. But people like Dylan don't disappear. They regroup. And sometimes they shatter. 6 months passed. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't even feel intentional. Life simply kept moving, and I let myself move with it. I went to work. I rebuilt my routines. I learned how to eat dinner alone without feeling empty. I learned how to wake up without bracing myself for whatever storm Dylan wanted to create that day. Sleep. Day by day, the weight lifted. And in those 6 months, Dylan's world unraveled. I didn't follow his social media. I didn't ask about him. I didn't check on the apartment. But small towns talk, and mutual friends talk, even when you don't ask. Tyler filled me in one afternoon when we ran into each other at the grocery store. He hesitated, then muttered, "You might want to know." Dylan didn't take the breakup well. I didn't respond. He continued anyway. He couldn't pay for the apartment once your prepaid rent ran out. He lost his job. He moved back in with his mom. He tried dating, but... Tyler shrugged. He burned every bridge. Even Brianna wants nothing to do with him. It should have made me feel triumphant. It didn't. It just confirmed that walking away had been the only sane option. One rainy Thursday night, as I was sitting in my new place, a tiny but sunlit house I bought with the money I saved from not buying a future with someone who didn't deserve it, I heard a knock. A soft one, familiar. My chest tightened. For the first time in months, dread crawled up my spine. I approached the door slowly, looked through the peephole, and froze. Dylan. But this wasn't the desperate hoodie-wearing version who'd collapsed on my doorstep months ago. This Dylan looked hollow. His cheeks were gaunt. There were dark circles under his eyes. He looked like someone who hadn't slept, eaten, or lived properly since the night I walked out. He knocked again, a weak, almost apologetic tap. "Sophie, please, just talk to me." My heart didn't break. It didn't soften. It didn't swell with nostalgia. It simply steadied. I opened the door, halfway blocking his view inside. "What are you doing here, Dylan?" He tried to smile, but his lips trembled. I messed everything up." He rubbed the back of his neck like he used to when he tried to charm his way out of trouble. "I just needed to see you, just for a minute." "You shouldn't be here," I said. "I know," he whispered. "But I've tried everything else. I've talked to everyone, I've gotten therapy, I've stopped drinking, Dylan!" My voice cut through his rambling. He swallowed, hard. His eyes reddened. "I can't sleep. I keep replaying that night. I keep thinking, if I'd just listened, if I'd just said no to the dare." "You didn't say no because you didn't want to," I said gently. "You wanted the attention more than you wanted us, and you only realized what you lost when the attention disappeared." He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. "And that, I added, is why we were never going to work." His face crumbled. "Sophie, I've changed. I swear I'm not that person anymore. I'll do anything. I'll prove it." His voice broke on the last word. When he stepped forward instinctively, I lifted a hand, stopping him at the threshold without touching him. "Dylan," I said softly, "you're not here because you love me. You're here because you miss the version of your life that I made easy." His shoulders sagged. He finally looked defeated, not theatrically, not manipulatively, just honestly empty. "Please," he whispered, "give me one more chance. One, I promise. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." I believed him, and that was the saddest part, because it didn't matter. "I don't hate you," I said quietly, "but I can't go back to being someone's emotional crutch. I can't be the person who fixes the holes you refuse to patch in yourself." He wiped his face with the back of his hand shaking. "It doesn't have to be like this," he begged. "We were happy. We were good. Please, don't let that night define us." A bitter ache tugged at my chest, not for him, but for who I used to be. "You defined us that night," I said. "Not the kiss, not the dare. The way you laughed at me afterward. The way you humiliated me because it made a room full of strangers cheer louder." Silence. A long, heavy silence. Then he whispered it, the line he thought would save everything. "Just tell me what to do, and I'll do it." I exhaled slowly. "You already know the answer." He stared at me, trembling, and I knew this was the moment he finally understood. "There is nothing left to fix," I said. "There's only letting go." His voice broke. "Sophie, please." I stepped back. "Goodbye, Dylan." I closed the door. No dramatic wails this time. No fists pounding on the wood. Only silence, long and aching. But this silence was different. It wasn't cruel or cold. It was closure. It was freedom. It was the end of a chapter I had been too afraid to stop reading. 6 months later, I woke up to sunlight spilling across the soft white curtains of my bedroom. My bedroom in my house. The walls were quiet. The air smelled like fresh laundry instead of cheap cologne and leftover tequila. My phone wasn't vibrating with a crisis I didn't create. No one was demanding attention, approval, or emotional labor before I'd even brushed my teeth. Peace had a sound, and it was this. I never realized how loud Dylan had been until he wasn't there to drown out my own thoughts. In the months following that final doorstep goodbye, life felt like learning to walk again. Awkward, unsteady, unfamiliar, but freeing. I poured myself into work. I focused on rebuilding everything Dylan had quietly eroded: my confidence, my routines, my happiness. And the universe rewarded the effort. I got a promotion, the one Dylan used to tell me was too much responsibility for me. My boss said I'd been glowing lately, more focused, more decisive. I wanted to laugh. Of course I was decisive. I had finally removed the human hurricane that derailed every plan I ever made. With the money I saved from not buying a future with someone who never deserved it, I put a down payment on a small, cozy house. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine, not ours. Not shared, not something Dylan could spread his chaos across. Just mine. A home that stayed exactly how I left it. A home where peace didn't need permission. Meanwhile, Dylan's life took the shape everyone but him saw coming. I didn't ask for updates, but people talk, and some information floats its way to you, even when you try to avoid it. Tyler filled in the pieces casually over time, always with a mix of discomfort and sympathy. Apparently, after I left, Dylan's bravado evaporated. Without me there to soften the blows of his decisions, they started hitting harder. Bills piled up. The apartment became too expensive. His job performance tanked. People stopped laughing at his antics and started avoiding him. The same friends who once cheered his dare now rolled their eyes at his emotional theatrics. The world doesn't applaud you forever. Eventually you have to grow up. He moved back in with his mom, something he once described as rock bottom for losers. Brianna wanted nothing to do with him after the drama. His dating attempts fizzled. His reputation shifted from fun party guy to walking red flag. I didn't celebrate his downfall, but I also didn't mourn it. Some consequences aren't punishments, they're lessons. And while Dylan spiraled downward, my life opened up in ways I never expected. I started going to a new gym, one closer to my house. That's where I met Leo Carter, a quiet, grounded guy with dark eyes and the kind of smile that didn't try to sell anything. He wasn't flashy or loud or desperate to be the center of attention. He just existed comfortably in his own skin. The first time we talked, it wasn't electric or cinematic. It was simple. He saw me struggling with a machine and asked, "Want a hand?" I laughed and said, "Honestly, yes. I'm one mistake away from catapulting myself through a window." He grinned, not in a flirtatious way, but in a genuinely amused one. The next day, he remembered my name. The day after that, he remembered my favorite podcast. There was no performance, no posturing, no need to prove anything. Just quiet consistency. On our second date, we went to a bar. While I was in the bathroom, a guy approached Leo and tried to chat him up about sports. When I returned, another man casually tried flirting with me. Leo didn't puff his chest. He didn't get jealous. He didn't make a scene. He just put a gentle hand at the small of my back and said, "Hey, this is Sophie introducing me," as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The flirting man backed off immediately, but the part that struck me was this. Leo didn't use jealousies to make himself feel wanted. He didn't need validation from strangers. He only cared about me, the person in front of him. Simple, steady, real. It felt boring in the most beautiful way. The kind of boring that brings peace instead of chaos. The kind of boring that feels like a deep breath after years of drowning. Sometimes late at night, I think back to the moment Dylan crawled across the floor to kiss someone else for a laugh. For a while, it made me sick to remember. Then it made me angry. Now I'm grateful. That moment, the one that shattered everything, was the same moment that set me free. The dare that humiliated me gave me my life back. Dylan thought he was playing a game. He didn't realize I'd stopped playing. He didn't realize the dare wasn't mine to perform, it was his. And he failed it spectacularly. Because when he dared me to tolerate disrespect, to stay small, to stay quiet,